From our first lesson this morning, the book of Deuteronomy, the very first line, observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy. I'm aware of the irony of preaching on that text within a few hundred yards of Oxford Street, where this writ no longer runs. It's quite difficult to leave this church after a service, I find, and re-enter a world in which there is no rest, nothing stops. Let's consider what Sabbath day observance can mean for us. Today we heard one of the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments turn up 3 times in the Old Testament, 2 versions in Exodus and 1 in Deuteronomy. And the one we're more familiar with is the Exodus one, when God rests on the 7th day after 6 days' hard work making heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is. Wherefore the Lord blessed the 7th day and hallowed it. But in the 10 Commandments in Deuteronomy, which we heard this morning, the emphasis is different. The Israelites are to keep the Sabbath as a reminder of the time of liberation from slavery in Egypt. And in this reading, the emphasis it's not so much on religious observance, but social, a new society without exploitation, a society with regular rest and recreation, slaves included, which reflects what God did and still does, leading us to freedom. But there's more to it than that. The 10 Commandments are an ancient example of a sort of rule of life, a universal moral law. They update quite well. They alert us to the false gods which draw us back into slavery. And maybe we're all looking at some times in our life for a rule of life, a way of behaving. Finding a rule of life is the easy, fun part. Living by it is quite a different matter. And one way to begin is to look carefully at our lifestyles, the way we spend our time, the way we encourage ourselves to be constantly distracted, day after day, so that the idea of a prayerful life becomes alien to us. And the desert fathers and mothers used to say, what you want to be like at the time of prayer, you should be like that the whole time. So here's a question which everyone has to face and answer. What is it stopping me living the prayerful life I want to lead? And the answer is simple. St. Paul knew the answer. We are human beings. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair. In other words, we are on the way. We are on a journey in life. We are not there yet. We do not know it all. Think of it this way, says St. Paul. We have this treasure in earthen vessels to show that the transcendent power belongs to God and not to us. The glory belongs to the gospel that is preached, not to the apostle who preaches it. And the earthenware vessels are fine as they are. And the miracle of this life is that we, because we are the earthenware vessels, we have been chosen to hold the precious treasure of the gospel. And in this we find our purpose, that the life of Jesus may be manifested in our mortal flesh. There is our rule of life. That is what matters. And one way we give thanks for this precious treasure of the gospel is by observing the Sabbath day, keeping it holy. In the gospel, Jesus says the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, confirming the Deuteronomy edition of the commandment which we heard, God's concern for his people, something to rejoice about, the celebration of life, liberty, and salvation, the foundation of Christendom. And that is how we are to see Sunday today. As Newman wrote, the whole period of the Christian church, from the day of Pentecost to the end of all things, is one holy and spiritual Sabbath. Sunday is the day we celebrate our salvation. What is salvation? Salvation is our sharing in God's life as individuals and as a congregation. And now back to earth, to you and me here every Sunday. I said that choosing a way of life was the easy part, living it a different matter. So choosing a church for Sunday observance is the easy, fun part. Keeping the Sabbath holy is several steps further on. How easy it can be, particularly today, to slip from being a worshipper to being an armchair critic. And we all do it, liking this, but not liking that, looking for a gratifying experience. And the internet, with all its wonders, adds to that risk with its multiple choices, preventing what we're here for, which is the simple enjoyment of the truth. A truth we know when we recognize the kingdom and ourselves within it. Sunday, our Sabbath, is for rest and recreation, and it is also the day for recommitment, the day for a reset, a new start, perplexed but not driven to despair, setting out again on the journey within, towards the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. On Sunday, we face willingly the truth about ourselves and the Son of God who saves us. There's room, too, for some self-imposed homework, letting the Scriptures settle in the heart. I'll leave you with a sentence by Pope John Paul II about our encounter with the Ten Commandments. The encounter of God and Moses on the mountain enshrines at the heart of our religion the mystery of liberating obedience. Liberating obedience. That's what Sunday is for. Every Sunday. A way of life. Obedience to the life of Jesus within us, which sets us free for a life with God. This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.